All right, we are talking about now the docs folder, the advanced docs folder. What's the difference between the advanced docs folder and the simplified docs folder? Well, in the advanced docs folder, we want to become more specific. We want to give Claude tools or methods to become more specific with our with the way we create those guardrails for Claude. So first, there is a note about how the three-layer model looks like. Basically, we do have docs folder, then we have a source folder for the code layer, and we have a .claude folder, but that's for later. Most importantly is that we have here now the docs folder. The simplified docs folder looks more like this, that we have here. In the docs folder, we have a PRD folder, then an architecture folder, design folder, etc. And we have our first .md file, markdown files, where we explain the project, for example, about the product requirement or about the architecture, design, etc. Now, in this new advanced method that we use, we now slowly understand, okay, once we have here inside our docs folder many subfolders, such as we have, let's say, not just 6, but we have, let's say, 20 subfolders as an example, then we use a claude.md file inside that location. So for example, we have here a docs folder that indexes the entire docs folder. It tells basically the Claude that is in the root folder, that is in the root directory. Okay, once you arrive here in the docs folder, read me first, and then I will point you towards all those folders which are inside the docs, such as PRD, architecture, design. Let's say there are 20 more, and it will point the agent to it and explain or show the index to the agent. Then once we notice that, for example, in one of those subfolders, such as the PRD, we have multiple files that are listed for. Let's just say we have now 10 PRDs inside that, 10 features, yeah. And we now notice that Claude is now, well, not being exact or misunderstands information, etc. That's when we use another localized Claude.md file that basically tells Claude how to read those, or how to read and write those PRD files in this example, for example, or here for architecture, the rules for architectural decision, or for design, as an example, the UI rules, and where it finds those specific rules, yeah, the design system, the components, the colors, etc. Yeah, that is basically how we then use Claude.md files or localize Claude.md files to help Claude to find that very specific information it needs in order to solve that very specific problem you tried to solve. Yeah. So all of this, now a quick note, all of this you don't have to memorize, but you need to know and understand, just to have an overview of it, and to understand that, okay, there is this way of using that method. And when you notice, okay, Claude is now losing a bit of, or is not being consistent enough, you might think, oh, okay, there are now 10 files under PRDs. Let's use a Claude.md file. And then you instruct to Claude, you tell Claude, let us add a Claude.md file, or you can ask Claude if it makes sense. And Claude will basically consult you if it makes sense. And if it makes sense, it will build that Claude.md file for you. And again, when you have the starter kit, it will basically follow those instructions of how to add that file. Then we have the again, that information about the Claude.md file in the root directory in the project root. Then we have the Claude.md files that are localized. Yeah, these are examples of how basically such a file might look like, yeah. And for example, here the localized PRD. Then we have the same here with the architecture and the decisions under the architecture. For example, if we want a very specific way to make a decision when we're building something, that can be added under, for example, under the docs folder within an architecture folder. If you give that to Claude, that information, Claude will read that and understand, okay, that's how you want things to look like, yeah. And then we have here the example for the design folder, the design rules for the localized Claude.md, and we have the same for security. Now at the very important, obviously, we're connecting the main Claude.md, which is in the root folder, with the docs folder. Yeah, and we're pointing towards it, such as here, the documentation map for system architecture, read docs /architecture /overview.md. When to use the advanced folder and when to use simple. Again, rule of thumb, start with simple, but you will notice it will basically mutate or change or transform towards using methods such as the localized claude.md files in order to have even better context awareness for your agent. And at the end, we have a quick note about when to use rags. Again, rags does not replace your claude.md folder. It sits on top of it and it just indexes it and it retrieves information from it. So absolutely, but the question is, of course, that's something you must decide for yourself. Maybe once your project grows and then you need to, you notice that there are inconsistencies, there are issues, then that's when you add rag on top. So that's it. That was now the docs folder, the advanced docs folder. We will move forward. We'll continue now with the skill.md file.